Hi, this is Shawnee Lavender, the Conscious Moms Coach, and I am excited to be talking with you about an emotion today, one that I think everyone is familiar with, some of us more than others. It is the feeling of frustration. And specifically today, what I'm going to be talking about is what is frustration? You know, we tend to not think about, well, what is an emotion? What is this feeling I'm feeling? What is it? Why is it here? So I'm going to be talking about what actually is frustration. And then, because I like you to have tools you can use and do something with, not just learn. Learning is great, and yet I'm really all about helping people put things into action in their families to make change. So I'm going to share a simple tool that you can use if you're one of those parents who tends to feel frustrated fairly frequently or fairly easily, or if you're not and you still want to work with it in a different way. I'm going to give you a tool that you can start using to deal with your own frustration in a productive way, because really, the way I see it, and the way a lot of research now points to, is that it's really important to feel our emotions and actually get to express those. It's when we repress them that we either end up turning them inwards and they become unhealthy for us specifically, or when we express them in a harmful way externally and push them out on others in a negative way, it harms others. So you're still going to feel them unless you're a robot, which I know there are a few of those on Facebook. But if you're a human being, you are going to feel feelings throughout your day, throughout your life, because that's what a big part of what it means to be a human being is to be a feeling being. So I want you to be able to really still feel those feelings and yet have tools so that those feelings don't become harmful or corrosive to you or harmful or toxic to the people around you. So that's what we're talking about today. Let me take a sip of water and I will tell you what frustration is. So frustration is the feeling that we go to, that we experience when life isn't the way we think it should be. I'm going to say that again. So when life isn't the way we think it should be, and in this case, life could be other people's behaviors, what they're doing, it could be the world around us. When we think that things aren't as they should be, then we feel frustrated. So I didn't mention, we can also be frustrated with ourselves when we think we aren't being how we should be. So frustration is a direct result of our own rigid, judgmental thoughts. So when we have rigid, meaning, they're not flexible, they're really set in stone thoughts about how things should be, then we are priming ourselves to feel frustrated. Because guess what? Two things. One, sometimes things are simply going to be other than we think they should be because it's life, and guess what? We're not in charge. So that's number one. Number two is we don't know how things should be. Yes, we have our beliefs and our values and our opinions. So we have judgments about things and we have opinions. So that's understandable. But the truth is we don't actually know how things should be. Even if we feel strong conviction that this is the way it should be, well, guess what? You're not in charge. I'm not in charge. So that's not the way things should be. It may be really how we want them to be. So I'm not trying to get you to give up your beliefs or your values or anything like that. What I am letting you know is that when you hold on to those in such a rigid fashion, you are setting yourself up to be often in feelings of frustration, because life is simply not always going to match up to the way you think it should be. So that's frustration. That's the root of it. It's like you have this idea, and I know when I have it, this is the same thing for me. we have an idea, this is how it's supposed to be, this is how my child should be behaving, this is what I should be able to be doing right now. And when we get stuck in that rigid, inflexible place, then we are setting ourselves up to feel frustrated. Now, let me give a bit of a nuance here, because you may be thinking, well, I don't think I know how life should be, and so this doesn't, resonate with me. The nuance I want to give is that, like I said, we all have our preferences, we all have our beliefs and our values, and we, have desires. I would like things to be this way. I would like my interactions with my child to feel this way or look this way. I would like myself to be a certain way. So we have those, right? That's part of what goes on for us. When we have those desires and wants, when life doesn't meet up to those desires and wants, doesn't match, if we're not rigid, if we're not in this should be this way, then usually the emotion we're going to default to is disappointment. So there's a sadness about it. There's a, oh no, that's not what I wanted. So there's a difference. You can probably see it or feel it or think about some examples for yourself. So again, it's not about, hey, everybody dump your values. No. It's about, be aware of when you put a strong should on it, a demand, that is the way things have to be, you are setting yourself up to be frustrated. When you have your values and your wants and desires, and yet you understand that, you know what? Life is like it is sometimes, and I don't always get things the way I want it. Then you're more easily going to slot into an emotion like disappointment, where you're recognizing, I don't like that. I wish it were otherwise. I really would like it to be this way instead. So you're still honoring your values and your preferences and your wants, yet you're also making room for reality to say, yeah, that's the way it is right now. So I think, as you can see, hopefully, and I'll check in for feedback here in a moment, is that there's a really different energetic feeling in your own body. When you are frustrated, it is very much the sense of, indignation of, this shouldn't be this way, and I know how it is. So it even has that rigid kind of posture with it, right? It's like this closed, this is just not the way it should be. Bah humbug, that's the kind of feel it has. That's not healthy for you. Now, if you're trying to tense all your muscles and then, explode and do some physical movement in some exercise class, cool, do that. But if you're trying to go about your relationships with your children, your relationships with a significant other, and you're in this kind of defensive posture, it's not going to be easy to get very close to you. And it's not likely going to be very fun for people to get close to you, because you're in this just really closed down, hunkered down kind of place. So that's frustration. Disappointment, well, again, sometimes we don't always enjoy being around people when they're feeling, big disappointment. Disappointment has more of an openness about it. It's this, and it's a vulnerability, right? So it's like, I really had this strong desire. This is really, really important to me. The natural world, or human life, or, fairness in elections, whatever, a big level thing, or just, it's really important to me that my child talk to me in a loving way. It can be any level of thing. But when you have that strong desire, like, I really want it this way, and life doesn't turn out that way that you want, it's really more of this, almost a surrender in a way of, I don't, I feel sad. I wish it were a different way. That is much more, you can even see by my posture, it's much more open. It's something that somebody else can come in and embrace. It's something that there's room for somebody else to even get near you. It is something that is also, it actually has an energy that does draw people because we have compassion, we have tender hearts, and, everybody expresses them differently. Some, have hardened them in lots of ways, but underneath, we have that social nature to really want to be with somebody when we see them feeling pain or feeling let down. It's not a feeling, but they have that sense of, oh, this is just so not the way I wanted it. It's easier to get close to that person. So in terms of our relationships with our children, with our significant others, with friends and colleagues, that is much more a place where we can build from and build connection in those places. Whereas frustration is just really, again, it's this rigid lockdown place. So let me pause there and see if there are questions or comments, because again, I don't think this is something that most of us think about. We just, I'm frustrated because that thing over there. Well, it's not really because that thing over there. It's because we have a very rigid way of thinking about it in that moment. So let me just pause and I'll check in with you. Great. So now that we know what frustration is and where it's coming from, it's not just this random emotion or feeling that we get. It's something that comes about as a result of our having really rigid ideas about how things, including life, others, and ourselves should be. That's where we're priming ourselves to feel frustrated then when life doesn't go in the direction we think it should. So now I want to share with you, again, we're talking about, great, now I have some more information, you have some greater awareness, which is a really important tool in and of itself. Now, though, I want to give you a really practical tool that you can use right away to temper that frustration. So you can still feel your feelings, you can still be like, I don't like this. And yet, what happens for most people, and parents in particular, when we feel frustrated, especially if we've been feeling it a lot, we tend to take that frustration out on our children. Some of us raise our voices, some of us yell, so really raised voice, some hit, some shame, some isolate their children with timeouts. So there are lots of ways that are harmful to our relationships with our children that we tend to react when we feel frustrated. So to me, again, one of my goals as a coach is to support parents not only on having new awareness and new understandings of human development and relationships and communication. It's also about having you have specific tools so you can start changing behaviors that you have that don't work, because all of us have them. I have them. I've been doing this work on myself for 20 or almost 20 years, 19 years. And there are still habits that I get into that were formed very early on. So they're harder to break because they have a lot of practice and they're wired into my brain in certain ways. And yet we know that our brains have neuroplasticity, so they have the ability to change, rewire, and develop new patterns for us to act from. So that's what I want to support you in, is now that you know, gee, frustration is something that, I don't like it when I do something out of frustration that then I later regret with my children or with my spouse or with myself. So I want you to have a tool. So here's the tool. It's called the 5-second rule. So it runs a tool, the 5-second rule. Now, this is something I actually got from improv. Some of you know that I have been a student of improv for just over a year, not a long time, and yet it is one of the best parenting tools I've ever come across. Now, that's not how I learned it. That's how I teach it now to families, but I learned it in the context of theater and as a, comedic, as a stage tool. Now, the 5-second rule is from an improv exercise that my teacher does. And what you do in that exercise is that you're normally in a pair with another person. but no matter how many people, it still has the same application. So what happens is that when your partner says what they say or does what they do, that's a little confusing. When they say or do something, you, rather than right away saying or doing something immediately in response to what they've said or done, you wait 5 seconds. Really easy, right? So there's no like, what's the 5-second rule again? It's wait 5 seconds before you do or say anything. So I know you all have the capacity to do that. So that's the 5-second rule in a nutshell. So I want to invite you to practice this, and here's why. Here's what happens. So when we're in frustration, now usually it's common that we're starting to go into a part of our brain that is not as good at self-control. So the 5-second rule can be really challenging, but the premise is that what you're able to do when you pause for those 5 seconds is you are able to bring more consciousness into what you say or do. So let me just back that up for a minute and explain it in another way. So when your child spills their water, let's say, who knows, was it intentional, was it accidental? Doesn't really matter. They spill their water, and part of you is in that place of they shouldn't do that. You know, maybe it's they're too old, they should know better, or you know, the table was just cleaned and it's got a clean tablecloth or something, so they should be more respectful of it. Whatever your should that you're in that rigid place of. When you're in that place and then the child's water gets poured onto that table, what we are prone to do is react. And so we jump right back out with, don't do that, or don't you know better, or you know, if we've had that frustration building up, maybe we say, it's time out, you know, you need to go to the special chair. Whatever it is you notice that you do or that you're prone to do that either A, you regret later, or B, you're open to seeing that that's actually not the best tool to use with your child. Like, I know there's some people out there who do timeouts. I don't agree with them because they are creating some negative things that are not going to help you as a parent, and they are harmful in building the type of relationship that really allows families to smoothly and respectfully function. So I'm not going to go into that, but so I'm not saying, you know, you need to listen to me, but if you're open to like, okay, well, yeah, maybe I want to experiment with this anyway. That's what I'm inviting you to do. So in those moments of frustration, we tend to react very quickly and we do our thing that we do to our children. The 5-second rule, what it is allowing you to do is, so they've spilled their water. Now, well, I'll go to a caveat in a minute, but so they spill the water. So when you hold yourself to no response for 5 seconds, it is much easier for the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that is up here, that is the most human, that is governs our rational thinking, our logic, our problem-solving ability, a lot of our creative abilities, our executive function, our ability to self-control and self-awareness. When we pause, part of what we're allowing is that slower prefrontal cortex, PFC, to be the one responding. It's almost like, think of it like you had two, you know, in cartoons when I was a kid, they used to have the angel on one shoulder, right, and the devil on the other. Think of it that way. Your devil is the quick responder, or the quick reactor, excuse me. Quick reactor is like, nah, 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 nah. That's the one that comes in quickly. Your angel, slower. It's just the way it is. Your angel is slower, so you want to give that angel time to think, to catch back up, to be able to assess the situation more. What's going on with my child right now? What might have just preceded that pouring of the water? So you have a lot more data that you can use and information so that you can now respond from a much more mindful, conscious place. The devil is reactive, no consciousness. It's not conscious, it's an automatic response. The angel, if you will, is that more contemplative, thoughtful response that's going to help you be the kind of parent that you want to be, not the kind of parent that you automatically have come up under stress because that's what was programmed into you at earlier ages. So that's what the 5-second rule is. There's nothing you have to do in that moment. You don't have to look around the room or look at your child's eyes. Nothing. It is simply pausing for 5 seconds. And I don't mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now that might feel in the moment like it's 3 hours, when you're stressed, but it's not. It's just 5 seconds, so you can do it. And that again is giving you the chance to be in a brain state that is much more likely to be constructive and helpful and nurturing and supportive of your bigger goals as a family and as a parent than your reactive devil voice, devil brain, is going to do. So that's all it is. It's that simple. Play with it. See what happens. My guess is that out of 20 times in a day, you might remember to do this 3 times. That's great. Practice it, play with it. Those 3 times, see what happens. How does it change? What effect does it have? It doesn't take really major kinds of tools for you to be able to shift yourself as a parent and show up as in the way that you want to. So really simple rule, 5-second rule, pause for those 5 seconds before you do or say anything in response to something that you're feeling frustrated about. Okay, so if you have questions, please comment on the video, whether you're on YouTube or you're on Facebook. Let me know, I didn't understand this, or let me know how it's working, because I am very convinced from my own experience and from the experience that my clients have had with this, that this will allow you to start to build that buffer in that you need to shift out of reactive, frustrating, reactive reactions when you're feeling frustrated into a more compassionate, effective response by giving yourself that pause. Okay? So please let me know how it's working. Give me your thoughts or questions. And you can find me here most Thursdays on Facebook with Facebook Live, just like this. You can also, of course, find most of my videos over on my YouTube channel. You just look me up, Shawnee Lavender. And I have a Facebook page. I have an Instagram feed. I also have a group if you would like to have the support, not just of me, but of other parents who are on a conscious parenting path. I invite you to join the Conscious Moms Circle. You can find us on Facebook. Maybe I'll even post a link above. But if that's something you would like, so that you have more of a village and you're not out there attempting to conscious parent on your own, please feel free to request membership in that free group. My name is Shawnee Lavender. I'm the Conscious Moms Coach, and thanks so much for spending this time with me today to learn about frustration and learn a very simple tool that you can use to turn your frustration into more productive actions. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.